Okay,
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. How are you? Good to see you.
Good to see you. I'm really glad that I get a chance to talk to you about the work that you've done on specifically United States of Al. Is it okay if we start with your name and your role on that project?
Absolutely. My name is Daren Janes. I was a production designer on US of Al. I was also the art director on the US of Al on the first season. And then, our beloved John Schaffner decided to leave us and hand us over shows. So I got to be the production designer, and it was my first time out. It was great. It was a great experience. I never wanted to be a production designer ever. That wasn't in my cards. But it just happened so organically. I mean, I'd worked with all these people before, so it was just like, okay, let's just do this show and see what happens. And
Yeah.
we had a blast on the show. We had a really good time.
Yeah, I know. I'm really happy that I got to see you transition into this higher position, and we've known each other for so long, and to be able to see your talent kind of evolve, that was always great to see.
Uh, same to you.
Thank you.
I remember when.
Well, for example, yeah, for UF Saval, what is it like for you as a production designer on the second season and having that first script on day one?
What made it so easy was we had an amazing line producer, Jay O'Connell. I think you actually interviewed him.
Yeah,
Um, and it's rare that you get a person who just wants to do a good job and put on a show without anything attached to it.
right.
He just wanted to do the best job possible. I just wanted to do the best job possible. So he knew I was stepping into a new arena.
Yeah,
But I'd been around for a long time, so he knew that I knew my stuff. So it was easy for him to kind of feed me information before we actually started very early on. And our first episode out of the gate was a huge bowling alley.
oh,
Um,
yeah, I remember that.
so we've done bowling alleys before. So I basically went off of my Mike and Molly experience when we had a bowling alley there,
Right.
and kind of pulled up some drawings and stuff. And this is when I got to like, okay, I get to be the boss now. I get to, what colors I want and how I want to do it. And I stepped into that kind of like, it was kind of a, not in a fear based thing because I wasn't afraid of anything. It was like, oh, I get to do this now. And
Yeah,
I don't have to listen to somebody else. I get to pick my own colors. I get to go talk to construction. I get to talk to the producers.
right.
One thing that was a little bit unnerving at first was having to deal directly with Chuck Lorre
Right.
because of who he is. And it's a bit intimidating, and I'm my own worst critic. I've been doing this for 29 years at that time,
Yeah.
or 27 years at the time. Um, so I know my stuff, but it's when you come in contact with somebody that is of that caliber,
Right.
there is a respect that's unwritten respect. And sometimes it goes to the border of I'm not worthy.
Oh,
Being my own worst enemy and knowing that about myself,
yeah.
I had to convince myself going in. He had a hand in in solidifying his position for me on his show.
Yeah.
So he knew I could do it. So that's what got me through the door in those first few meetings with him. Is he was the one who completely approved it. So I know that he knows that I
Yeah.
can do this. So that's when I was able to step out of the way and go to some of those meetings and be the production designer and be a worker among workers. And I work for you, and we can collaborate and we can make a great product here.
Yeah.
Um, when I was able to switch that I'm not worthy to, oh, you're just a dude who puts on a show like me. You just happen to have a lot of shows and
Yeah.
you're really talented in a lot of shows.
Exactly.
Now I can learn something from you. I'm going to watch you and how you work, and then I'm going to cater to what you like by watching you work. So I can get in your head when you're doing run throughs and when you're giving notes and stuff. So now I know how to position myself to do the best job I can for you, because you're
Right.
ultimately the one who's going to come and walk the sets and say if it's good or not. And that has served me well, is to stay humble and that I don't know everything, and be
Right.
malleable so that you can fit into any, like almost like a chameleon. Because Chuck Lorre has a personality. Kevin Bright and Marta have a personality. You know, the directors have a personality. And I think one of the best aspects you can have in any position in the entertainment industry is be malleable enough that you understand the human condition, because that's the only way that you're going to get the best result out of everything, is if you understand who you're playing to, but play to everybody, you know?
Right. And also to be able to like showcase exactly your vision as well, because like you said, these caliber of people make you want to bring the best version of yourself, your best work, but at the same time, you have to cater to what they have in mind as well.
There's a very fine line between being confident in your job, but also being teachable.
Yeah.
Knowing that, and that comes with just, you know, work, and that comes with experience, you know, and a great teacher like John Chapner, who had that ability to be so, you know, I still don't know how he did it. You know, a man that can do 7 shows at a time, you know, and 5 of them are in the top 10. You know, you don't get any better education than to watch that man go from show to show and watch him switch characters, not in a weird way, but in a way that he just wants to get the job done the best of his ability, and he's good, you know, and he can think on his feet. But that comes with a lot of experience too. So when I got that first script, it was like I had time to like really hone that in and really, and I would call Jay back and forth, and I'm like, how do you like this? I like this, you know, and, you know, I like to do SketchUp so I could do colors, and you know, I could research colors, and would it be cool to have like a 70s-ish kind of look vibe to it? And then you have a great set decorator who's going to, you know, not only make your vision look great, but, you know, she's going to bring to the table all of her experience.
Right.
And so it was always my goal from the very beginning when I knew I was going to be a production designer is, what can I do to have every department get excited about the job?
Yeah.
Because that's what's going to show on screen. So, and what can I do to step out of the way of the professionals who have made it this far to work on a Chuck Lorre show? You got to be freaking talented. You know, your painter's got to be talented. Your construction's got to be talented. You know, so let them do their job. Give them an idea and tell them what you would like to see. Let them have it.
Right.
And
I would love to touch on that exact topic of who is your support team? Like who else do you rely on to get that vision out onto the stage?
I think when you first get a script, you read the script, and a lot of times it's not a full script. A lot of times it's like a beat sheet that says, you know, interior, exterior, bowling alley. They do blah, blah, blah in the bowling alley. You're like, okay, so I need to have this and this and this. So start putting the pieces together, and you start seeing a design. It's a gut feeling like, okay, you move with the characters, and you're going to go down the alley, and you're going to go up, and you're going to go over to the restroom, and you're going to walk this way. So you know you need to have that kind of flow. And another thing that's always been helpful to me is always be aware of your surroundings. Like if you go to a bowling alley, where is the bar at? What does the bar look like? You know, even if you don't drink, what does the bar look like? What does the bathroom look like? Where the employees go to go get the food? What does that look like back there? I've always been that kind of curious person. I just store that stuff away so that I can use that when I need to get into a set like the bowling alley. So we've all been bowling alley. We've all probably bowled. So we start there, and I start kind of molding this, and then I get a SketchUp model, and then I had a plan from Mike and Molly, so I kind of knew, you know, how wide the lanes were and stuff, and I kind of put this thing together, and then I started adding the walls in SketchUp, and then I'd send it over to Jay, and I'm like, what do you think about this? He's like, that's great, you know. And so then you start refining it, then you give it to you talk to your set decorator, and your set decorator goes out and she finds the shoe rack, and she finds the ball return, and she finds, you know, where they do the score things. And then you start seeing this thing, and you're all working together, and you got construction over here begging for drawings so they can start building the walls. And so so by the time you finish, it's almost a complete thought. Right. It's not an executed thought. It's almost a complete thought. And then when it starts becoming that complete thought, everybody's on board. So then whatever their cog in the wheel is, the painters, the flooring, the set decorators or whatever, they start seeing it happen. And when they start seeing it happen, and then they come in and they see it on stage, it's like the moment.
Exactly.
It's like Linda said, it's like Christmas. It's like, we did this. And then when you get directors as a production designer, we get the ability to work with a lot of directors, especially in sitcom world. And another one of my favorite things to do was when I got a script was like, who's going to direct this one? Like, oh, Sandrowski. I know what he likes. So let's, in the design process, in molding this design, let's cater to the things that that he's going to get good shots at.
Yeah.
And, since I knew Sandrowski, it wasn't odd if I was going to send him a question about something that I had trouble with as far as blocking goes, because how do you see this working? And it just by having him involved in a small conversation, he kind of was on board when you got to the stage. So I really think it's getting people on board. There's a lot of people out there who like to take credit. That's kind of like their thing, and that's fine. Yeah. We've all worked with them, but then there's, it just seems like a much more conducive environment, healthily and spiritually, to like all work together to create this crazy ass idea. Fucking, bowling alley. There may be, a pharmacy. There may be, but if we can all get on board, that was a big John thing. Whoever comes up with the best idea wins, no matter what. If we can all get on board, we can all do our cog in the wheel, and we can all do our job without being micromanaged, and we can all get the idea of the script. There's no losing, because there's always small little things along the way that you may pick up on, but there's always somebody that wants to answer the question.
Exactly.
If you have, I did a dream sequence on US Val. I don't know if you saw that one or not. It was a hexagon, and it was supposed to be this floating poker table. It was supposed to be like a poker, thing. And they were like supposed to be floating, and these cards are supposed to be floating everywhere. And I couldn't, for the life of me, figure out what I wanted to do with the floor. Yeah. Okay. And then I ran across this checkerboard floor that looked like it was, going down to hell. Basically what it looked like is it was like vortex. And I was scared. I thought it'd be cool in there, if you got a shot of this floor that looked like it would look like they were floating. Yeah. But I was scared to make kind of big decision without somebody else involved. So I emailed the showrunners, Maria, and I said, this would be cool. I don't know if this is too much or not. And so they didn't know either. So they went to Chuck. And Chuck said, do it. So nice. That's how the collaboration worked on that show, is because there was not really a huge ego involved. It was like they all knew they were just wanting to put on a show. That's all I wanted to do. And that's kind of the thing I think that's sometimes lacking, on other shows. It's like there's a cog in the wheel that doesn't want to have as much fun, and that's okay. But it's kind of like a stumbling block sometimes. It's like, oh, come on, we just want to have fun.
I know. What I enjoyed about that show was that it was joining a lot of different crew members from a variety of hit shows. You had so many experiences there. What would you say was one of the most proudest episodes that you guys worked on?
Oh, we got the script that said, and they go into an aquarium. Like, what? Yeah. I've never done an aquarium before. Like you go to like the aquarium at Long Beach and you walk through and you see all the fish. Yeah. How the hell am I going to do that? So I'm like, oh, perfect. I have done 7 of them. You never say no.
Right.
And because I've had so much experience, it's like, I know I can pull something out. I know I can at least get enough information to have a conversation.
Yeah.
But I also know that when I get into that mode, I could carry it further. And then I start molding the set. And then I start remembering, oh, that stuff's over at that prop shop. Oh, we do that. That we can get that from there. Oh, and I know that the set or the director of photography is really good with blue screen. How do we make? How far does this blue screen have to be before it looks like there's fish? You know, and so this it starts to take shape, and then you make a. I can do SketchUp,
Yeah.
and so SketchUp, and Jay loved it, and everybody loved it, and then I did a drawing, gave it to construction, and of course they're like, "What the heck? What's this? I don't know what this is." Of course, you don't know what this is until you start building it. And then you're like, "Oh, this is starting to come into shape." Then you start seeing the texture go on. Then you start seeing the paint go on. Then it goes to the stage, and then they start painting the floor that looks like And then the blue screen comes in, and then it's like, "Oh my God, there's fish in here," And it turned out to be probably one of the funnest sets I think I've done. It was far from anything that's normal that we do, like hotel room, bedroom, house, backyard, blah, blah. I was like, okay, let's do this one. Because I remember we did on the pilot for Mike and Molly, an aquarium restaurant.
Oh, that's right, with lobster.
I know it can be done. So I had enough confidence because I've had some experience working on other shows. Like, well, we did it there. What can we do to make it really cool here? So you just start Googling, and you just start putting together your own little twist on like each individual like window, and then what does it say? And then you start doing signage. And Carrie was really good at signage, and so she did signage for that. And I said, well, let's do this and let's do that, and it all came together. And then we had a penguin. Like penguin, come on, that was kind of fun. But no, the editor Ashley was so impressed with that set, she sent me a copy of what they shot because she was like, "You got to see this. This looks really cool." And so I was really proud of it. And I think that when Nikki Lorre, Chuck's daughter, got on it, she was pretty proud of how it worked out and how it was just a great environment. It was just a fun thing to do. And not saying that a dirty, seedy hotel is not fun to do too, because those are fun. We've had a few of those. Or not to say that do a community center with a bingo game is not fun. Right. But every once in a while you get one of those curveballs that really kind of test your limits on your design ability. And what's really great about actually getting it physically built is when it's done, there is a sense of accomplishment within yourself. And you kind of get a little bit more self-worth and like, okay, I can do this. And then you start pushing your own limits with the help of the whole crew. But you start pushing your own limits to see, okay, what can I do? How can I make this better? What will this look like if we did this? And you start collaborating with your crew. And, invariably, they're going to have ideas too. Sometimes they're not, but sometimes, and sometimes they're going to have really good ones. You never know. Boy, you're going to get the next really great idea. The PA could come in and say, hey, and you're like, oh, that's great. But you got to give them a chance to say, hey, it's great. And you got to give them the free space to say that so that you can make it great. Yeah. So I'm very a collaborative kind of person like that. I'm also a pain in the ass sometimes. I get that, as you know.
No, not at all. Not at all. I think that stage, that show, exactly like you said, it was that type of community where everybody had a voice. And like you said, there was so many minds that you were able to collaborate with. Was there ever a set or an episode that was the most challenging?
Yeah. It's a little bit difficult to explain, but we had actors going to camp out in their backyard. And when we went to the run through on Wednesday, it's Wednesday, mind you, it shoots Friday.
Yeah.
Chuck I'd like to see them closer so that we can shoot them better. Can we move the whole camping, right in front of the audience area? Of course we can. This is Wednesday. So, and he said, I want it to look worn. I want the grass and stuff to look worn and like it's at the back, way back or back of the house. And I'm like, okay. So first thing I did was I needed to relate that back area to the house so that it's the house. So the first idea I had was we didn't use the front door in that episode. So there was two windows that were next to the front door that were supposed to be bedrooms. So I took that and I stuck it in that area and I put, a fence up. and then we put grass down. But we were in such a hurry that we had to piece it together, and it looked pretty. And so when he came on the stage later on the next day, he was upset, like really, really upset. I got called to the stage.
Yeah.
And he was very adamant about, I wanted this to look worn, blah, 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 blah. And so that's when I had to say, hold on a second.
Yeah.
You just gave me that set last night. I needed to get something in there so that they could have a rehearsal on it before it got shot.
Yeah.
So my idea was to get everything in and then have them come on tomorrow night and, do the grass thing, blah, 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 blah. I did that in an email to Chuck himself. I did that.
Yeah.
And then I got a response from him. He goes, okay, I understand. And that was all I had to say. So yes, he was correct in that in his vision, what he wanted wasn't what I produced. But when I explained to him what I had produced was enough to get them by so that they could work on it and that it wasn't finished, then he was fine with it. But I think that was really the only time that was so challenging that it kind of threw me for a loop. But I also knew that I had to stand up for myself, because if you don't, there are people who, when you smell blood in the water, they go after you. But I knew I was right. And I knew that I was going to give him what he wanted. He just had to understand the process.
Right.
And once he understood the process, it was fine. So that showed me that he probably respected me much more for my ability to go to him, who owns everything, and say, look, give me a minute. You just changed your mind yesterday. So I think that was one of the hardest things I had to do. But after that, it was fine. After that, I never had a problem with him, because I think there was a mutual respect there, because I came and I said my piece, and it was very quick. But also, as Chuck Lorre, I don't know what it's like to be in his head, to have 4 shows going at once, so there's a lot going on in there. So I can't take it personally, because I don't come from there.
That's true.
I'm just doing the one show and trying to get him his one. So I don't know that he thought something else, but it wasn't a directed thing at me. Although sometimes it feels like people can, put on an air of disdain that makes you feel a way. But when I understood that it wasn't my fault, it was like I just didn't have the time, and it was going to get there. And I promise you, it's okay. Then it was fine. And I think most of the rest of the time, I never really had a problem.
No, it sounds like, there was plenty of support there. And like you said, there's a lot of times where there's some departments are so removed from what we do, for example, in the art department, that it may be something that they just don't understand the process. And like you said, it just takes an email, it just takes a conversation.
Sure.
Know that, what, we do know what you asked for, and it will get there, but it's not like an overnight thing.
I think that if you understand, people do things because they have a reason to. Most of the time, it's not to be malicious. There's a reason why.
Yeah.
If my filter says, I don't like what you did, and I react like that, we're just going to get in a big old fight, and it's not going to end well. So if I try to understand why people do sometimes the things that they do, I'm like, oh, I get it. I could come from that place, and we could finish the conversation, or we could finish the show, or we could finish whatever it is, and I'm fine. But it's like I had to put on, the big boy panties and understand the human condition. I have to ask those kind of questions so that we don't get into a situation where I feel uncomfortable walking on the stage if you're there.
Yeah, exactly.
Can't stand that. I can't stand that feeling. But then there's some people that won't respond to you. And then you got to understand, okay, that's not mine. I wanted to clean this up. It's not mine.
Well, great. I appreciate that we got to talk to you about this whole show, and the fact that you got to really establish yourself and really get creative on this project.
That, it was probably the most freeing show that I've done. It was a really good experience. Kind of like my last hurrah, I think. No, I did Call Me Cat after that. So with Greg Ronda.
Thank you, Darren. I appreciate the conversation.
Absolutely. Thank you, Hugo. Appreciate it.
Bye.
Talk